Hi. So I'm primarily an academic, meaning that I study a lot of things. I study some religious things. Um, Recently, I've been reading about Crowley and Thelema. I've actually been reading about them for a long time. Thelema just basically means will, which is kind of important because when someone has a sense of what they want, their will is what enables them to get it. This is a little bit weird and esoteric. Part of the reason why I'm recording this is because people are terrible at explaining things, including Crowley himself. Absolutely atrocious. They just basically talk into circles, and it doesn't make sense. And I kind of get the gist of what they're saying from reading a lot of things. And these are a lot of generalized ideas. And an idea in motion, and when we apply it, it's going to be different to everybody. And so, what I want you to think of is like rose-colored glasses. When you put on the rose-colored glasses, you see the world in rosy colors. And so I was watching a video about Babylon. It was super fascinating, and it was confusing and I think off misleading. And I was going to give my take on what I think these things are. So first, to start with something called an egregore. An egregore is basically the personification of an idea or concept. And so when I think of like crime fighting and justice, the personification of that, the human relatable symbol of that could be something like Batman or Superman. Not so complicated. And so when I put myself in a situation where there's injustice or something, I could have the thought, what would Superman do? And that's just like using this idea and this personification of a concept in motion. What would justice and law and order be? Well, the interesting thing with Crowley is that the whole religion of Thelema is based on will, right? It's basically uncovering what you really want. And you're supposed to have a little helper. It's your holy guardian angel. Again, I think that's a personification, some internal symbolism that people need. It's almost like the feather that Dumbo had in the cartoon Dumbo. Dumbo can fly because he has these big ears, but he doesn't believe he can until he has the feather. And so I kind of view the holy guardian angel as a personification, an egregore, that enables people to do things. So the interesting thing, and what I was looking at is Babylon and the Scarlet Woman, which are embodiments of desire. And so the interesting concept with desire, and this is like a universal human concept. It's not strange occult. Occult just means hidden knowledge, but it isn't something specific to Crowley or anything. I mean, any sort of desire. When I want something, when I see something as being valuable, the moment I do that, I'm giving it power over me. And so let's say I like Thomas the Tank Engine. Now, anytime I see Thomas the Tank Engine, it draws my attention because I like it. I personally like the Ninja Turtles. I see anything Ninja Turtles, in a way, I'm vulnerable to it. I'm susceptible to buying it, to consuming it, to entertaining it, and so it has a real power over me. And so the egregore, the construct, the humanization of desire, is what Babylon. That's what she is. And so with Babylon being that way, if I have desire incarnate, now is desire always good for me? Well, if I have no motivation, no desire to do anything, to be better, to achieve anything, well, now I'm inert and I flounder and I kind of rot away. But at the same time, if I let desire take hold of me and I almost become a slave to desire, well, now I'm being leashed by it, and instead of actually directing it, I'm enslaved by desire. And so instead of actually having a drive, I'm like an addict. I become like a junkie. I become like I'm looking for the next big fix that desire can give me. And this is actually what makes Babylon interesting. And so we have like the bigger picture, which is Babylon, desire in the universe as it relates to us. This grand scoping, almost unreachable thing. The ideal of, like, wow, if I won $1 million, I could get this, this, and this. wow, if I could do anything I want, I can do this, this, and this. And then you have the more personable version of it, the things that are actually within your reach. I could want to rule the world all night, till the sun rises and sets and whatever. It's not a realistic thing. It's a bigger, sweeping, unattainable goal. I mean, it's there. I mean, maybe I just really want things I can't have. But then they're the things within my reach, the more personal things. And these are actually going to come to me, like, so for example, we're going to use the Ninja Turtles. When I go shopping, right, I mean, I could say, wow, I wish I could invent something like that and do something like that. I could maybe, but that goal is so grandiose that it's out of reach. And it's good to be aware that I have this deep, like, seated desire for something way off in the distance. But at the same time, if I think so far off in the distance, I can never get there. And so if we think about stairs, which are our means to traverse, or ladder to get to a greater distance, they're steps to each stair. And so with the steps, if I look, I say, okay, well, that my goal is way over there and I may not be able to attain it, but this step is right in front of me and that I can attain. And so the Scarlet Woman is kind of like the attainable step. She is the human manifestation of desire, but relative to the individual. And so these ideas in motion, when you think about and you read Crowley, are super, super fascinating. And so they use this term a lot. They call it alchemical transformation, and it's a silly term, and it's basically going back to like a Nicholas Flamel. We're going to turn lead into gold. And it's silly in physicality because you can't do that. I can't take dirt and I can't make it into cupcakes that are edible. It just doesn't work that way. I mean, there are people that eat dirt cakes, but it's not healthy for you. It's unrealistic. And so when I learned to take these things from a psychocognitive sense, and so if I think about confidence, if I walk into a room with no confidence, the way that room exists to me, it's oppressive, it's scary, it's fearful. The room is a lot more in control than I am. And if I flip the script, and this is something that is just the way our emotions are, the way our thoughts are, but if I flip the script and I emotionally approach the room with confidence, well, now I'm not intimidated by the room. The room is a utility for me. Instead of the chair being something I can fall out of, it's there because I want to recline and it'll help me do so. It's a means to my ends. And so this journey with the concepts that they're doing, it's really like a crafting and a molding and almost a forging of desire to where a person can get what they want the most. And that's one of the key differences with religions like Thelema, is that they're not inert. And what I mean by that is that they're not just sitting there waiting, send me a miracle type thing. They're actually being more proactive and saying, hey, this is what I want. How do I decide what it is that I really want and what I really need? And they provide tools for that. And then it's like, well, now how do I get there? And they're very proactive in how do I get there. And so as someone migrates and moves, that's the journey to how they get there. Now, Babylon in herself is an egregore of desire on the global scale, on the deep, like the governing things. It's the proverbial carrot in front of a horse that the horse is walking after, but the carrot is not reachable because it's on a little string just ahead of the horse's ahead of the horse's mouth. But because it's in front of it, it walks towards the carrot. And this is the nature of what desire is. And so the reason why Babylon is so important to Thelema is that because if you find out what you want, what your will is, your will is going to be things that you want. And so desire is a very much a part of will. If you have no sense of desire with will, there's nothing to attain. There's nothing to go after. There's nothing to pursue. And it makes will worthless. And that's actually kind of one of the trappings in life and in the psychology of people. If I lose the motivation to pursue things, if I lose the motivation to grow, to attain, to chase after things, then I basically start a mental death. And that mental death is so destructive, so ultimately toxic, that it can actually lead to a physical death. And that's actually what they're talking about with Babylon. And again, this extends to base needs. This could be something that is your desire. And so desire is a strange word because we're using it over and over again. But if we think about biological needs, one of the needs that we have is the need to be loved, right? And so that need to be loved is a need to be accepted. It's a need to be appreciated. But it is also the cocaine, heroin thing of an intimate moment. And having a person make you feel so amazing, it's as if they were a drug to you. And throughout the spectrum of what this could be, we see these pitfalls that well, what if I have this desire for somebody? They're like the candy that I want to eat, but they hate me. Well, to pursue them now is to be like a criminal. It's stalking. It isn't actually romantic anymore. And to experience moments of desire with them, well, it's not wholesome. That's an assault. And so these are things to consider on a cognitive scale. And so Crowley actually did a really good job of articulating this in a kind of scatterbrain way where it's not clear. And that, I think that's the biggest problem, is that clarity. Because if I think that I want to go to, let's say, Disneyland, and I have a map and I have the journey laid, I know it's laid out, I know the roads to get there, I know the planes that go there, I know the boats, however you wish to travel, land, sea, air, it makes getting to Disneyland not much of a mystery. But the more muddled that is, then that journey becomes an impossibility. Now, again, I'm filming this video because I was watching a video about Babylon. They wanted to do a deep dive into what Babylon was and all these other things. And they're just going in a circle, not really saying anything. And, oh, she's desire, blah, blah, blah. May she bless you. May she do this. May she do this. Well, that's not saying what she is. And so this interesting thing, and whether you're a Thelemite or not, and I don't consider myself a Thelemite, I am more of an academic. Understanding what it is that we want and how to get it is an essential way to have a successful life. And so I can look in the long term and I can look in the short term, and you actually have to look at both. What are the steps that you need to take to get you there? And so maybe it's college. Maybe it is attending a class. Maybe it's showing to work on time. Maybe it's applying for a job. But there are things that I want, and there are things that are so far in the distance that they're harder to get. I need to be able to find the little personal steps to be able to take to get there. And understanding it is what I want is super important to that step. That's like the direction, that's the destination, right? The destination in the short term and the long term, and the grandiose destination, the concept of destination. And so when I say this, I think about athletes. When you have a really top athlete, they're driven for success. And so anything but having the most success is not good for them. It's almost like a mental sickness when they can't be successful. They're not okay with it. And so these people that are driven like this, if you make him a grocery sacker, they're driven to be the best grocery sacker that they can be, because anything else hurts them. If they drive a car, they have to do it to the best of their ability because it hurts them. And so that drive and finding that motivation to chase success is a really good thing. This actually can spiral in reverse, which is the interesting concept with Babylon. I can actually become self-destructive. And instead of choosing the things that actually will help me out and achieve my best, I can choose the things that wreck me. And I can actually think they're really good things and just find those things. If I'm in a room of 100 people, I'll find the one that'll put me down and hurt me. If I have opportunities for making money, I'll find the one that actually causes me to lose it all. And so this is like acts of self-destruction. With desire, she is that double-edged sword. So Babylon actually, conceptually, is the means to achieve everything you ever wanted, but also the means to unravel you to where you have nothing and that you actually find your worst. And so, which makes approaching it something you should do with caution. So if we think about it like eating something where I have a sense of satisfaction, or consuming something which gives me that temporary high, and I end up with being addicted and I lose everything to the addiction. One way nurtures my body and it grows stronger and healthier and I become more able-bodied to gain things. The other way, I actually wither myself down with these short-term highs that I'm hurting myself for, and until ultimately I'm so broken that it's almost like there's almost an impossible way to find my way out of that situation. I just wanted to say this because, again, super frustrated with the way people talk about this. It's like they don't. I feel bad, but it's almost like these people don't understand the concepts that they're trying to portray. And for me, my fascination with this sort of thing is actually the personification. I am super interested how people have the same nightmares and how we make the same mental associations, and how that using those same mental associations, we come to similar conclusions. And you'll see this across the span of religions, across the span of philosophies. The feminine equivalent of Babylon in art would be the muse when she inspires, and the femme fatale, the kind of home wrecker, gold digger when you're when a person is misled by desire. And those things are universal. Sometimes they change gender, which is actually fascinating too, but super interesting. And it's just food for thought. It's food to think about, like how it helps you understand how you work. It helps you understand how other people work. And in life, I think that's what we're doing. We're trying to find a way to live our best lives by pursuing the things that we actually care about and abandoning the things that we don't. There's an expression about this. It's called barking up the wrong tree. And I think a huge amount of time is spent barking up the wrong tree, where people pursue careers that they're not really good at or they don't have any fulfillment in, and they pursue people that they think they need and they don't. And years go by, decades go by, your life goes by, and you can either look back on things and say, hey, wow, that worked out really good because I pursued things and I had a lot of, like a reap what you sow, a cause and effect. You know, I had a lot of good returns on these relationships, on these social interactions, or the opposite. It's like, man, I wasted my life. I need a do-over. And the concept of Babylon, the concept of Thelema, they touch on this. That's all I wanted to say, because the videos are driving me crazy. They were driving me crazy about how they were explaining it, and not really. And when someone does that, if they're really talking about Disneyland and they're giving you a different location, have they been to Disneyland? Do they understand what Disneyland is? Crowley lays these things out. I mean, and it's not just him. Other practices, other ideas, they talk about this extensively. And I think people like the idea of achieving something. They like the idea of going to Disneyland, but some people just haven't. And by the way that their discourse is, it's pretty clear that they haven't. That's not a bad thing. I mean, maybe they can find their way to Disneyland. But first, you need to know where the destination is. Then you have to have a means to get there, right? And so these grandiose things are fine and dandy, but the bigger picture, the goal way out in the distance is not achievable unless you could find that small step there, the means to get there. And you can pinpoint it on the map of what you want, which is what desire is, right? And so Babylon becomes a very tricky goddess because, again, where is she leading me? Am I journeying in a circle, or am I getting to where I want to be? And how much power does it have over me? And am I able to cope in a healthy way with the power that my will and my desire to get and to go somewhere, to do something, which is the alchemical transformation, right? The turning into gold, right? I mean, can I actually use it to do that? Or am I using it to turn me into refuse?